laptop so I can keep a better sort of eye on the questions that come in. Today's beverage of choice is some Wild Valley red wine, a fine blended red wine. It's normally used in this house as cooking wine, but it will do for this evening. I see we've got Alex from Alex's Assets and Simone from Hooked on Classics already on the stream. Good evening. I think we have other people who should be joining us. I always come on a tiny bit early. Don't know why. It's just the way that I am. Exciting sort of person that I am. Right, let me just load up the stream on here. Yes, good evening, Simone. Hello, good evening. Let me just see if I can get this set up. I had to restart my laptop because it was misbehaving. So, Mr. Mark Parr, good evening, sir, and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well, sir. I have the headset on because it gives better audio, I think, than but if I don't use it. One thing I don't like about Microsoft Windows is it takes an absolute age once you've restarted to sort of come back. But I use Windows because I need it for editing software and some other things. I have actually got a dual boot computer. I've got two dual boot computers actually. But I normally use Windows just because of compatibility reasons. I have Linux as well. If anybody you know what it is on both the computers. Unfortunately, the main computer that I would have loved to do editing on, and we started using as the main computer for running the channel, actually doesn't work at the moment. It hasn't actually worked since we moved house in April 2019. It needs the graphics card putting in again by somebody who knows what they're doing, which is not me. So I've run the entire channel, apart from Two Jacket Reviews, on my laptop for the last 3.5 years.
Hello, friends. My name is Jaguar.
No, stop doing that. Stop. That's better. Right, yes, the laptop is behaving now. We'll just start up. I can look at the questions properly. It's almost impossible to do a live stream unless you have two devices running simultaneously. It's almost impossible. That's why we do it like this. And I think Mr. Richardson does this, Ian Seabrook does this, Alex Matt's Assets does this. Can't remember if Mr. Manning from Matty's Cars does this, but we'll just get this going. And then we'll get into some proper questions. There we go. Right, mute my own voice because I don't have it running in the background. Have a pop-up chat running, and then we will be absolutely fine. I hope that laptop is not running Christmas music anymore. Yes, it's not the first I've been on a big screen. Not certainly something that I'm that bothered about, really. But there we go. Right, let's just make sure we've got the pop stream having. Right, here we go. Perfect. And I actually tend to pause it on my other screen because I don't like watching myself moving. Right, there we go. So, excellent. Alex says, my laptop is playing stupid Christmas music and not playing me. Well, maybe the stupid Christmas music is better. I'll leave it up to you. Mr. Matt W says, hello. Alex's Asset says, I have you on the big screen. Yes, I think we can cover that. Simon from Lot 76 Cars says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, sir. Hopefully we'll come and film another of your cars soon, because I'm going to have to start filming some other cars soon to provide some channel content, which will be nice. Mark from Bad Book says, very clever technology, sir. Yes, it is clever when it works. That's just what happens. Right. Do any of you actually have any questions for the live stream this evening? Simone says, I liked your walk around on your last video. Check out your content. That will be the Shambolic Shuffle at the Great British Car Journey Part 2. There is actually a first part to that. There's in the video description if you haven't already watched it. For whatever reason, I'm not even sure why, the Part 2 of the Shambolic Shuffle today has been far more popular than the first part. I have absolutely no idea why. Oh, well, I've just had a just had a spam comment, which I'm going to remove immediately. I think Alex had one of those on her channel yesterday. Yes, Shambolic Shuffles are very popular on my channel. There's absolutely utterly loads of them. Yes, Simone, I've just removed that. I've reported that, so that's fine. It's gone. Shambolic Shuffles, we've got masses of them. I did 16 at the NEC show. I think I had the most comprehensive content of everybody from that show. Not the best, but certainly the most comprehensive, because we just walk around with a camera trying to fall over and film every car we see, unless the cars are forbidden fuel, in which case we do not film them because we don't talk about diesels on this channel. But there's, I mean, loads. We've got 800 and something videos on the channel now. I think No Budget Views alone is 95 videos. Tree Jacket Views is up. There's a 50. Sensible Secondhand Classics and reviews is 30. So just in terms of reviews alone, we've got contingency reviews as well, about 200 reviews. So I've got an awful lot of stuff on the channel now. Yes, Simone, I got your email reply. I'm really sorry I hadn't had a chance to actually reply to you. I will do. I'm so sorry. Bob Surrey asks, why do you ever such a for forbidden fuel? I've made multiple videos about this on the channel. There's loads. There's actually a video called "Why We Don't Talk About Diesels on the Channel." I mean, I'm going to actually wait for people to say if they want to hear this, because I have talked about this so many times. But right from the very first video on my channel, which was the review of the 2017 Seat Toledo we owned at the time, it's been there. It's not a new thing. It's been there since the first video we ever did, which was over 3 years ago. I mean, if there's nothing else to talk about, then I'll talk about it. But I do get a bit sick of talking about it, because I talk about it all the time, on like every sort of seems like every week. So unless somebody says they really want to hear about it, I won't actually say. Simon Lot 76 Cars says, loading the rare Japanese classics. Yeah, we've had a lot of rare Japanese classics, principally from Stuart, who has a very big collection of them. And we do have more to come, but the thing is that I can't even release the video at the moment, because we haven't hit a target of when actually we will release it. It's 4 to 5,000 subscriber special, and so some of you who've not subscribed and liked the videos are going to have to actually subscribe and like the videos, because then we might actually be able to release that video. So yeah, I won't say what it is. So what else do we have here? Hello, Simone. Yes, hello. If you want to talk to somebody else in the chat, just make the @ symbol and then start typing their channel name, and you can talk to them directly. It's a bit easier that way, but otherwise you tend to lose things on this chat. That's an interesting question. M. Wheatley says, what is your favourite 80s British car? Oh my gosh, that's difficult. That's really hard. I've driven some really interesting 80s cars. Done the Metro, done a Metro Vanden Plas from 83. That's a good car. Metro is good. Maestro is good. Montego, I think, sorry to people who own Maestros, I think the Montego is actually a better car. Certainly with the 2-liter engine, PG1 gearbox, they're really good. Rover 800, I drove one from 1990, but it was a pre-facelift one, so it was as good as you're going to get with one of those, and that was very good. It depends if you want to sort of count things like Capris, because they weren't made in Britain by 1980, they were made in Germany. Mark II Granada is the same. Vauxhall Astra Mark I, I quite like. I won't say any more about that at the moment. Yeah, so there's few. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. There's loads. Simone from Hooked on Classics says, the only reason I have a forbidden fuel, which we can't talk about on my channel, is because it was cheap. £250, a Rover set of 250. Yeah. I did a no budget use episode on 75 quite recently, a V6 one, 2 litre V6 led by Mike Humble from AR Online, and that was really good. You can still get them from no budget reviews money. BL Lover says hello. Mark on Motoring says, what were your favourite and least favourite cars you've reviewed in 2021? What we normally do actually at the beginning of a year, or end of the year, or beginning of the next year, is to do a video on the reviews which I thought were going to do better, and then ones which I'm surprised did so well. And somewhere in there, we'll probably talk about the cars that were my favourite and the ones that weren't. So just wait for that; it'll come. The BL Lover says, my Metro needs a drive, but I can't find out what to do with it. What exactly do you mean by that, sir? I don't quite understand. Matt W says, the Maestro. Yeah, the Maestro, I do like Maestros. We've had a lot of Maestros on the channel. We've actually had 5 Maestros in total on the channel. Yeah, they're brilliant. I've driven 4 this year alone. Trabali says, evening sober, a nice Christmas. Yes, it was nice. It was very quiet yesterday. Darfur says, Mark II Cavalier. I really want to try a Mark II Cavalier. I've never driven one. I really want to. I've driven a Mark III, but I haven't driven a Mark II. I'd really like to try one of those if I can. Simone Hooked on Classic says, the Montego. Yeah, Montego is a good shout. It has to be the right spec. Has to have power steering, 2-litre engine, and that PG1 gearbox for me. Preferably a Vanden Plas. They're really rare Vanden Plas. I do have one that I can do a walk around on. I hope to do that at some point next year because it's a very nice one. Mark from Bad Book says, the Datsun 260 is amazing. Silly question. How did it compare to the E-Type? It's actually not a bad question. I think the E-Type is probably a slightly larger car. It does have a larger and more powerful engine. It's a 4.2 as opposed to a 2.6 litre engine. The cabin space is probably about the same. Getting into the boot's much easier because in an E-Type you have to actually reach inside near, I think, the rear seat to the 2+2 and pull a lever. You can actually just open the button on a 260Z. So it's difficult to say. Both had 5-speed gearboxes because the E-Type had actually been retrofitted with a Quay 5-speed as opposed to the Moss 4-speed with no synchro. I don't really like driving cars without synchro in first gear. That's something I've realised having driven a couple of them, which belong to Alex from Alex's Assets. Yes, one of them in particular I didn't seem to get on with very well. I'll leave that up to you to decide which one that was. It's very hard to say, despite the fact that they look kind of similar and they're both 6-cylinder sports cars were made in the 70s. The E-Type I drove was an earlier one, but they were made until about 74. So I think I'll go with that. They are quite different. The E-Type is a bit more difficult to sort of, rein in because it's got a lot more power. But it's got things like all-round disc brakes, things like that. So it's quite an advanced car for 1966 or what I drove. The Datsun, the thing is, they're really rare. Like you think E-Types are rare, well, they're not really in comparison to 260Z. And so I was constantly being really quite careful so I didn't actually crash it. But I didn't drive it particularly well. You'll hear me over revving it because the clutch was a bit difficult in it. So yeah, it's also got fixed seat belts and no power steering, kind of the same as an E-Type. So they're not easy cars to drive, but they are a lot of fun. So I don't really know. That's probably quite enough about that. Trably says, you like the Jetta from the 80s, your favourite. We're not talking about all cars from the 80s, sir. We're talking about British cars, and that's definitely not a British one. Bob, says Ford Sierra facelift would be my favourite, not a fan of a jelly mold. Well, if you like facelift Ford Sierra, sir, then you might like a video that's coming up quite soon. Subscribe to the channel for that one. Travelly says, hit the like button. Yes, thank you, sir. We've also got a super chat facility that you can use if you want to on the channel. It's just like an instant donation, because you can give to channels right away, even from like small amounts up to larger amounts. We've had some people who've been very kind to do that. We have got channel membership now, and so you can give monthly to the channel. The super chat just enables me to see the chat a little bit easier if I have a lot of comments. You don't have to. There's no reason to become a channel member or do super chats or whatever. But if you want to support the channel, then you can. Lots of different ways to do it. Richard Hart says, evening all. Alex's Asset says, hello to the BL lover. We do think that Brazilian cars are very interesting on this channel. That Allegro that I drove, which again Alex owns, was in concours condition. I can't emphasize that enough. And I only messed the gear change up once, and it wasn't even on camera, which is always very good. Travelly says, Mark II Cavalier SR 130. I think that's referring to the best British car from the 1980s. That's not a bad choice, actually. But I've never driven a Mark II Cavalier, so I don't actually know. Alex Sass is getting excited with funny smiley con things. Domodar says hello, yes. Oh, wow. Simone says my Cortina Mark III has a 5-speed Quaife gearbox. They're very good. Yes, in the E-Type, that was so much better than the original Moss gearbox. Mr. Coleman, a rubbish mechanic, who many of you might have heard of, who is probably one of the top mechanics in the country, and that's no exaggeration, not my words, the words of Mr. Richardson. He is very able to drive those things like E-Types with the 4-speed Moss gearbox and no synchro on first gear, but not really for me. I'm getting, sort of the fact that we might be having a Cortina on the channel quite soon. I wonder why. Alex says that I love Rover P4 gearboxes. I think the only one I like is the automatic one, which is the 105R. The rest of them are a bit difficult. And Wheatley asked something that's actually in the line of business. I don't know if I've talked much about this recently, but my job is actually sourcing cars for private clients. It's actually what I do. And because of the very high prices on a lot of second-hand cars, not just for classics, although that is actually true. 80s and 90s classic car prices are going up. That's a good thing to say. Mark, is it Mark? Is actually affecting my work quite a lot. I've only managed to do 2 jobs since August, because a lot of my clients that I get, they are looking for a car when they don't even own one. Might be a first car, might be a first one they brought up in the country, might be lived in London for years, but it's a very typical sort of client that I get. Someone who's looking for something, but we haven't had one in a long time. And so they can't really afford to get into the market at the level that they originally wanted to. So I haven't really had much in the way of work, because most of my work is second-hand cars or things like that, rather than new ones. So yeah, it's affecting a lot of people in the industry at the moment for various reasons. And excuse me, the classic car prices, I'm not sure. Even the second-hand car prices for sort of normal, everyday cars for the things I source, which are typically the kind of cars you'd see on sensible second-hand reviews, which doesn't get as many viewers as I'd really like. Rather like the E-Type video, I would recommend all of you watch that E-Type video if you haven't seen it, because that is some of the best work we've ever done on the channel. It's a very old video now. It was for the 1,000 subscriber special in January 2020. But if you've not already seen it, I would thoroughly recommend that you watch the Tweed Jacket Reviews Jaguar E-Type 2+2 video, because it was a collaboration between 3 of us, and that is some of the best work we've ever done on the channel. But it's only had something like 600 reviews, which is insane. The no budget reviews of a Honda Jazz that was recorded in September 2020, so 8 months later, has had something like 17,000 views. What a strange channel that I have. That's completely insane, isn't it? Anyway, yes. So I don't know about the second-hand car price or classic prices. They might just continue to rise at the moment, but they will eventually plateau out, I think, because they must do. Mark on motoring, yes, still going for the Rover P4 gearbox. Yes, not my favourite. Alex very good at changing gear in a P4. I am not. Diesel says, I missed the start because I was watching a slightly shambolic shuffle. Well, that's not really a problem, is it, sir? Mark Prasad, who has actually got the channel member icon has actually come on for Mark Prasad, because that's what he is. If you want the front end of a 1996 Rover 416 SLI automatic to be next to your name when you comment on videos, then you can become a channel member too and support the channel, what we do. Mark Prasad says, Happy Christmas, sir, to you and your family and all followers of the channel. Yes, Merry Christmas to you all. Mark Emoji says, good evening to Diesel. Diesel says, good evening, Mark. Very, very polite on this channel. We all say things properly. Richard says, how many cars does Stuart have? Stuart has a car we didn't film because I've already filmed one on the channel already, which I filmed earlier this year. It's not a Nissan Datsun actually, Valence, so we'll skip over that one. But we use 6 of the cars that you've seen recently. The B12 Nissan Sunny Coupe, the B12 Nissan Sunny Estate, the 98 Nissan Primera, 98 Micra, the 1994 Sunny Y10 Estate, and the 260Z Datsun. They were all owned by Stuart. All of them owned by the same person. The B12 Coupe, I think he's had for 20 years. The 260Z he's had for 31 years. So he's had a lot of them for a very long time. And no, he's not an ex-Datsun dealer. You'd think he might be, but he's not. There is one more car that he owns that I'm not going to tell you about because we can't release that video at the moment. And in some ways, that is the best car in the entire collection. But we'll have to get to a certain size on the channel before we release that video. Tripe Munger says, evening one and all. Again, channel member. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Simone Hooks Classic says, I love driving E-Type. I sat in the early triple wiper model. Lovely. Yes. Can't remember. I think we had 3 windscreen wipers on the E-Type. It was a 66 4.22 plus 2, the one I had. And you can actually hire that car from New Forest Classics in Bewley. You can actually go and hire one. That could be a way to get to drive an E-Type. Mr. Coleman, good evening, Mr. Coleman. Roach Mechanic says, good evening and festive condiments of the season. Festive condiments also to you, sir. Tripe Munger also says hello to Mr. Coleman. Roach Mechanic says hello to Tripe Munger. And Mr. Mark Parr says, good evening to Mr. Coleman. Yes, as I said before, we're very polite on this channel and we all say hello to each other. Mr. Coleman, do you have anything to add today other than the fact that you've no doubt been drinking some pale cream sherry? But I better have a sip of my wine. That's what I'll do. Have a sip of my wine. It's not bad actually. It's just very, very kind of inexpensive cooking wine, but not bad really. Alex says hello to Mr. Coleman. So does Trabelli, and so does Richard Howlett. And apparently Mr. Coleman is shopping for parts for the new Fleet Edition because Mr. Coleman has purchased a new vehicle and he has said I can have a go in it quite soon. But we won't say what it is because I will let Mr. Coleman actually kind of announce his own car, which is only fair that I should do that. Mark from Bad Book says he has a very good Christmas cracker joke, but he's too rude for my channel. Yes, we don't like swearing on my channel, so I'm afraid we're going to have to let that be a direct communication that will be completely censored. And Simone also says hello to Mr. Coleman as well. Mr. Coleman is waiting to get to 1,000 subscribers before we can do live streams. Alex did one the other day. She just hit 1,000. And I recommend you go to Rubbish Mechanic channel and subscribe to that one as well, because as I've already said this evening, the Rubbish Mechanic name is a total and utter misnomer. Absolute and utter misnomer. Mr. Coleman, and these aren't my words, these are the words from Mr. Richardson from Furious Driving. He is one of the best mechanics who was at the entire NEC show. one of the best in that entire building. So there we go. Trabelli says, "What's your favourite past and present Mr. Coleman's fleet?" Oh, that's really difficult. The Primera P10 that Mr. Coleman had, and that's been sold now, was fantastic. It's a video which, in comparison with the other two cars that we filmed at the time, this is the first time we ever filmed any Mr. Coleman's cars. It was Tweed Jacket Reviews back in May 2019. So there's Volvo 960. I really enjoyed that as well. Primera, I really enjoyed. It's one of the first Primeras ever built in this country, number 80 of a Sunderland line from 1990. I also quite enjoyed his Rover 620 because I had a 620 as well. It wasn't as good as Mr. Coleman's. Present ones, the Kappa is very interesting. I haven't driven that yet because I haven't actually been aware that car's had an MOT. It's not got an MOT at the moment. I might be able to drive it at some point. I might not be able to. We'll have to see. The new car Mr. Coleman's just bought, which hasn't, I don't think, arrived yet. That is something I'm really looking forward to, and it's not even for the reason most people would imagine so if they knew what it was. I'm really looking forward to driving that. I love his Alpha Twin Spark 166. I loved his previous Alpha 166. I think I said about the Busso engine 166 that he had, the 3-litre, that if it was, the second coming, and I had 2 hours to drive any car I wanted to, I'd probably go for a 166. And that's probably still true. I think 166s are amazing cars. They're very unreliable cars. They need specialist ownership and specialist servicing. But they are fantastic as well. Mr. Coleman says he's been very busy with work and studying electrical qualifications, so not being able to do so many videos. Yeah, that's right. Mr. Coleman works ridiculous hours. Absolutely crazy hours. Rob TT says, what classic would choose as a daily driver? There's quite a few that you might be able to choose. I think possibly if I were to get rid of the Rev 45 V6, and we're not going to really, there's an ownership report on that car that will be coming up either next week or the week after, because I'm going to make some slight changes to the order I had for some of the content. That we go for an N14 Nissan Sunny, because the N14 Nissan Sunny that I drove, technically a Y10, the one I drove, was an estate. That was a revelation to drive. I really like that car. In fact, of all the cars from Stuart's collection, and I drove 7 of them in 2 days, that's the one I wanted to take home with me. A lot of them are kind of similar to a Perioli Primera. They're just a little bit smaller. And the estate one had so much space in it. The boot was huge. A much nicer car to drive than, say, a Mark III Golf, Mark III Astra, Mark V Escort. Just a much nicer car, maybe even better made. And the engine's fantastic in that. So I don't know if I'd go for the estate because they're so difficult to find. And they only came in one trim level, which is the one you saw. And that was a very weird spec. And maybe I'd want things like a rev counter and some adjustable electric mirrors. And an SLX saloon or 5-door hatchback has those. So that would be a very good suggestion. If Evan rusted away, but actually one on eBay at the moment for about £2,000. And that's an 1.6 LX Auto. A very tempted buyer, but we just haven't got the money at all for any additional cars. That's why we haven't got any. So yes, that would be a good choice. You've got to make sure it's serviced, but it is a chain cam engine in those 1.6 N14 Sunnies, which is very, very good, as well as being very, very hardy for banger racing, if that's your sort of thing. Tripe Munger says, looking forward to more Kappa content on this and Mr. Coleman's channel. Yes, Kappa content is coming. Don't worry, it is coming. Alex says, I want us on a super sticker. I've got Bacard on me. Just become a channel member. It'd be fine. Simone from Classic says, which of your films are you most proud of and what makes you smile? Tree Jacket reviews is the ones that we prefer to make, but they're very expensive, and so we don't make many. If we made probably 10 times the amount of money we do on this channel, then we probably make all the reviews Tree Jacket reviews. But YouTube, when you aren't like James Martin's channel or something like that, even Lloyd Mechanical Marvels, that they were talking the other day about how they're struggling to actually make it a full-time job for Laurie because of the income is it fluctuates so much, which it does. But we really like making Tree Jacket reviews. Was just it's so expensive to make, we don't make many of them. But the MGZSEV video, which is the most popular review of any type on the channel ever, was a huge success. It was very difficult to actually get that together. The weather was appalling. We got thrown out of our filming location. Mr. Richardson was very late to film it, and I was quite ill at the time that happened. But it just all came together really well. I sent the video for editing to Mr. Franks, although Mr. Richardson actually filmed it for me because it was easier for him to get there. And it's superb. I'm very pleased with it. I'm also very happy with the E-Type video. And the video, possibly apart from the E-Type, which I'm a bit disappointed didn't get so many views, is the 1982 Mark III Ford Capri 2.8 injection 4-speed. We got Mr. Franks' drone out. We did loads of drive-bys. That's a fantastic video on a car that I've been looking forward to driving for over 20 years. And unfortunately, not many people watched it. Yeah, I'm very proud of it, but unfortunately, the videos that we make with cinematic experience and better quality, better editing, better filming doesn't necessarily translate into more viewers, which is really strange. So, for example, the 260Z that we released yesterday, Christmas special, that has not had as many views as the Nissan Micra, but I did no budget reviews a while ago. That's just the reality of it, and that's why we don't make any of Tree Jacket reviews, because it's too expensive for what we actually get. So yeah, there we go. IXS has asked Mr. Coleman about his qualifications. I'm not going to sort of go on to that because I don't really know much about that. Simon from Lot 76 Cars says, what do you think of the impact of the Ultra Limited and modern classics? Do you think it will throw up some bargains? Well, it already has thrown up some bargains. The 1988 Toyota Starlet I did a no budget reviews was an Ultra Limited Zone reject. That's why it was in possession of Mr. Curry, who has provided a lot of cars to the channel. We're talking like more than 10. And he just said, come and film it. And I said, where else am I going to find a 1988 Toyota Starlet? I'll come and do it. So it already is. It absolutely is. And people like Mr. Curry are looking for bargains, and they are finding them because of the Ultra Emission Zone, which I have been talking about for well over 3 years. The first video I did on that was in 2018. So yeah, I go on about that an awful lot. And of course, that's when, if you want to hear about why we don't talk about the forbidden fuel cars on the channel, that will be one of the reasons why. Worthless $1 says, will human drivers still be insured when self-driving cars are the norm? I think they probably will have to be in some respect, because if somebody hits you or something, then, or if there is a mistake with the software in the self-driving car, then you have to be. Mark on Motoring, talking to Simon, says, I've seen a few people selling some nice cars from the 90s after long-term introduced to the emission zone. Example, a nice Mark II Clio. Yeah, I'm not a massive Mark II Clio fan. I have driven one. I didn't really get on with it very well, unfortunately, but some people are quite fond of them. Mr. Coleman says to Alex, I'm moving into higher management. I'm getting a bit old for working on big trucks. And I gather 200 to 300 Rover K Series head gaskets. This is why Mr. Richardson has called in some help with his Rover 200 VI. The only specialist help that I could ever recommend to him, apart from supplying the correct parts from DMGRS, where the head gasket has come from his car, is to get Mr. Coleman involved. And 200 to 300 head gasket replacements is actually more than I think they've even ever done DMDRS combined. So very, very experienced. Also, his uncle Neil, who does my MOTs, he is so kind of much of a specialist, or used to be a specialist on K series and KV6 engines. He's still got the locking tool for doing cam belts on a KV6 engine. So yes, all runs in the family. Richard Howlett says, "I will not be a passenger in a self-driving car ever." Yeah, I think a lot of people probably might feel like that. Simon, speaking to Mark, says, "I saw something on the LMC Drive channel." I don't know what that one is, actually. I'm not sure. Mark Wheatley says, "Have you considered a small secret mission docket so might fit more glove boxes?" Eventually, eventually, those making documents will be replaced, and I've actually already got some more to replace them with. Oh, look, super chat. Thank you, Trabelli. As lots of you can see, we've now got the super chat feature enabled. That puts the comment right up to the top. It's just a really nice way of donating to the channel instantly rather than channel membership. If you don't want to do that, that's not a problem. And that will help me out. That will probably be enough for me to drive to and from the video that I'm filming tomorrow. So there you go. It all helps out. Thank you, sir. Mr. Davey Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV, again a channel member, says, "Good evening. A little bit late to the party. No problem, sir. It is Boxing Day. It doesn't really matter." And Alex Hassett says, "Good evening." And he says, "Good evening" back. We are very polite on this channel. Simone Classic says, "There's no ultra low emission zone in the neck of the woods." I wouldn't be surprised if they come and bring that out actually in virtually every city, because it's gone to Bath, it's gone to Birmingham, it's coming to Aberdeen, all over the place. It's going to be rolled out, unfortunately. But if the Cortina Mark III is exempt, so that's very good. Tripe Munger says, "I know we don't get the traction they deserve." Well, that's not surprising, because I don't think lots of people like to see me sitting in a car for 25 minutes and ranting on about really not very much. But the week with the MGs has been something we've really much enjoyed. It actually helps me out a lot when I'm doing that to get me to film more cars. I think one of the weeks I did, which were about, I think it was 1,100 miles I did in one of the cars. The MGHS plug-in hybrid. I filmed 11 reviews during that time with that car. Insane, which was really helpful as well. So, and I got to go and see my father-in-law. My ladywife came with me, so it was all wonderful. Davey from the Scottish Car Enthusiast Radio TV says, "Scottish Classics evening." Travel says, "No problem, sir." It's very polite. He has given me some travel contribution. If you want to know about how it is to drive a Rover 75 on a daily basis, then you can just visit the Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV or the Hooton Classics channels, because they both got them. I can't talk about them though, because they have a certain type of engine. Worthless $1. "It seems that 20-mile-an-hour zones are rolled out everywhere. Can you think of a car we still be enjoyed to drive, even whilst being overtaken by bicycles?" Yes, I can. MG Midget. You do like 20 miles an hour in that, and it's an absolute laugh, although it's not great for the speed bumps. 20-mile-an-hour zones, particularly in southwest London, are everywhere, and I don't like them very much, viewers. I don't really see the point on big main roads having 20-mile-an-hour zones. Side roads, maybe. I live on a 20-mile road myself. Yes, it probably, because there's 3 schools just up the road from here. That's probably why it's here. But on big main roads, I don't know. Tripe Munger says, "Good evening to Mr. Waters." Mr. Coleman is having some pale cream sherry and eating the pork pie. We do like pork pies, and we like pale cream sherry, although I have some red wine this evening. Drive Boat says, "All at our expense." I imagine what you're talking about is the ultra emission zones, and yeah, they are proving a bit tricky. Scottish car enthusiast and trains TV, Mr. Waters says he's getting his Rover 75 out for a drive to visit some family members tomorrow. Richard Hart says, I couldn't work out how to be channel member. It's incredibly easy, sir. You just click the join button at the bottom of any video you see. It says subscribe one side and join the other. You just click that join button. That's it. I must start putting the join link in the video descriptions as well. Frank Butcher says the Datsun video was very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bill worked really, really hard on doing that video. He filmed it really well. The weather was really bad on that day. It wasn't raining, but it was really windy and it was really cold. And he did a fantastic job filming and editing that. I'm very happy with the video, and I hope that more of you do have a look at that because it was absolutely fantastic, that video. I really enjoyed filming it. I didn't like, though, the clutch in that car particularly. I didn't like the fixed seatbelt. I don't like fixed seatbelts. They're awful. But apart from that, absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Simone put on Classic says, I live on a 20-mile-an-hour one-way road in the local street like a racetrack. What more do I need to say about that? It's a bit of a shame. Frank Butcher, my fuel consumption has dived into introducing E10, lots about 5 miles per gallon. E10 affects different cars in different ways. I mean, the Rover 45 V6 we have, the fuel consumption on E10, if anything, it's slightly better, which makes no sense, I'm sure, to many of you. But the car is actually designed for it. The government tells you it's not, but because I'm in sort of so many of these sort of groups, and I've spoken to experts of things like DMGRS and of course Mr. Coleman, who is a qualified a mechanical engineer amongst a lot of other things, metal fabrication, banger racing, driving instruction, driving examiner, management, fixing trucks, fixing cars. There's nothing Mr. Coleman basically can't do. And we have discussed it, and I'm happy to run that car on E10 with no problem. Obviously, the SsangYong, it's only a 2019. You open up the fuel filler cap and it says E10 on it. So, it's designed for it. So, but I know that there are a number of other cars that have had drops in miles per gallon, things like that. And some of the really old stuff, so pre-1990, I wouldn't know where to start with some of that. I think probably the best thing to do is to, if you want to know about E10, don't ask me because I'm not doing any more videos on it. I get too much kind of sort of hate on them. I don't really like that. So although the videos I've done this year, I did one this year, one last year, and a specific one about using E10 in post 1990 Rovers and MGs, I'm not doing another one on this channel. Ask Mr. Coleman in his question and answer session, and he will no doubt actually tell you much better than me exactly how it goes. And he's even used it in his he's even asked it. He's even used it in the Granada, and it was okay. But he doesn't recommend using that in the Granada with a 2.8 engine all the time for other reasons. So Davey has said 21 hour zones all around Edinburgh, along with our Spaces for People scheme. What on earth is a Space for People scheme? Is it that one where they get rid of all the street furniture? It's angered residents and it's biased. You say biased? Mr. Coleman is going to do a fleet update tomorrow, and I'll just answer session. Which is he's going to have another go. Yes, have another go, sir. It should be quite straightforward to join the channel as a member. You just click the join button under any video, and it should help you. Walter Stoller says self-driving cars will render us all passengers. We ever consider riding a motorcycle as a vast vestige of freedom and human control. Gosh, how long will those last before they get autonomous as well? I've never actually ridden. I've driven a quad bike. That was good fun. I'm not great on things with two wheels like bikes and motorcycles because I had a very bad accident when I was 11 on a push bike, and it actually almost killed me, literally, almost killed me. So I'm not great on things with two wheels, so I don't tend to do that. Chambers 101 says, good evening, sir. Good evening to you too. Mark from Mark says, no choice but to put E10 in my 2014 Fiat 500 Twin L105 during fuel supply issues. Car even felt grabber than usual, and engine management light came on. Many club members were issues too. When I went to Italy in 2014, I actually drove a 1.2 500 lounge auto. I mean, the geologic autos are appalling. Never buy a geologic 1.2 500. Just don't do it to yourself. Buy a manual one if that's what you want. But that actually ran on E10 right there. Literally, the pump said E10 on it in 2014, and I put the fuel in. Why a car made the same year, possibly in the same factory, should have problems with E10, I don't know, because all cars since 2011 have had to run on E10 by law in this part of the world. So I don't know why that would be. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, considering that in Italy in 2014, the place was overrun with E10 stations. So I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Simone who says upgraded with fuel lines according to R9. Apparently it will help. Haven't tested E10 yet. I mean, Mr. Coleman with Granada had a full tank of E10. Then the Cortina should be all right. What engine is in your Cortina, Simone? I'm afraid I haven't quite worked that out yet. I do apologise. Which has the E10 is awful. It really depends on what sort of car that you have. Because mine's absolutely brilliant on it, and so is the Sanyong. So I don't really know, to be honest. This is why I don't do E10 videos anymore. Scottish Car Enthusiast Trains TV, but it's Mr. Waters, we use E10 never cars. Fabia need to do comparison testing about superannuated. The problem is with doing that is that E10 fuel in this country is 95 octane, and superannuated is between 97 and 99. So it's trying to compare the two of them doesn't really work very well. You really would need 95 E5 and 95 E10. So yeah. That's a bit difficult, unfortunately. Chambers 101. Happy Land Rover Christmas. You must be one of friends from Alex's channel. Wonderful. Simon from Lot 76 Cars says, can you envisage some of the current crop of EVs becoming classic in years to come? If so, which ones? Tesla's probably will be. Whether that makes you feel happy, I don't know. Some of the others, I don't know about things like an MG ZSEV or MG5. We don't really know. Maybe the Volkswagen E-Up just sounds really weird, but then that might be the really early one, not the one that's on sale at the moment, but the really early one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate even more than that because that's just speculation. Alex says hello to Chambers 101, a 101 lightweight. Yeah, yes, Alex has a 101 lightweight. Mark says complains about geologic numbers too. Yeah, that's the worst automatic gearbox I've ever tried in my life. Do not buy a Fiat with a dual logic gearbox. There you go. By all means, buy a Panda with a manual. I prefer the 1.2, 1.4 fire engines. That's just my preference. But do not buy a dual logic automatic Fiat. Just don't do it to yourself. Worthless Dollar says twin cam city 10 should be fine for older cars. If rubber components age fast because the F not mature to change the lines. That's pretty much actually what Mr. Coleman and I have basically described. That video, I have seen that video on the Tin Can channel. And yeah, the advice in that's actually pretty good, as was the advice in Ian Seabrook's video on E10 too. They were very good. Scottish Car and Trades TV, Spaces of People is dedicated cycle lane, separates pedestrian cycles and cars. Basically concrete blocks taking away a lane on a road. Yeah, they do that in London. I know exactly what you mean. It takes a whole lane away. Not sure what that is good or not. Chambers 101 says has interesting 101 lightweight and a Series 2A 88-inch. Yes, interesting. Hits on Classics engine. This is a Mark III Cortina Estate. Upgraded from the 1.3 Crossflow to 1.6 Pinto. Oh, we like 1.6 Pinto engines on this channel. We think those are very good. Chambers 100 says the Series 2As and pieces and had a Ford Essex V6. That sounds quite a handful, actually. That Alex's asset says be posting a 101 video soon. Interesting. Mark Motoring says driving autonomous vehicles. There's a lot of viewers on my channel who actually are professional HGV drivers. There's at least 6 of them, and I think that's wonderful. I don't have a desire to particularly try that myself, but we've got a lot of professional drivers on my channel for some reason. He says, regarding autonomous vehicles, I've driven trucks with various systems, including autonomous emergency braking and lane departure. I've had to take action to counter the systems of one incident. Mr. Coleman and I discussed this actually quite recently because he doesn't just drive these. I think he's got every license pretty much apart from a double-decker bus license. And he examines people, trains people to drive them. And he says there's a few systems he just turns off automatically on a truck when they come into the yard when they get delivered. He just turns some of the systems off. Chambers 101 says, been plenty of lightweights. I'm sure you have, sir. Worthless $1 says, bottom by motorbikes. They rely upon a rider's balance for steering, so they can't be automated. Motorbikes will be the last form of human drive vehicles. Interesting. Hits on Classics. I presume that's again about the Land Rover lightweight. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV with a little channel member logo there. He says, don't buy a Fiat with a cellar speed, it's a bad gearbox. I don't actually have much experience with one of those. Mark probably does, and Mark on Motoring. I don't have much experience with those. He says autonomous technology is not quite there yet. We're not able to account for human naturalistic accounts on the roads. There have been some instances with autonomous vehicles crashing into other vehicles whilst they're in autonomous mode. That's quite right. Simone says it's on Classics. I've purchased new valve stud seals to the Pinto. We're changing them soon. Fantastic. Zpru says, I want to buy a Datsun Spring EV for my mother. Any good? I have absolutely no idea. I'm not sure those are actually over here yet. And I don't know if and when I'll be able to get hold of one. I was very blessed to get hold of a Dacia after a lot of people asked me if I could drive one at the Society of Motor Manufacturers Southern Testing Day in September. And that might be the only way I'd be able to get hold of one of those if they do another event. And we go for a drive one, because actually the Dacia video of the Sandero Stepway was quite successful, actually. So I mean, we'll have to see. Alex says the 101 and lightweight 2 different vehicles. I don't know anything about old Land Rovers. I know absolutely nothing at all, and I've been having alcohol, so that's probably not a good combination for me to talk about them with any degree of authority whatsoever. Yes, okay, 101 video, excellent. Right, we are coming towards the end of the time that we have. I don't like to go for more than an hour because otherwise it gets a bit ridiculous. So we will cap this relatively soon. Well, $1 1 says, question about built-in speed limiters. Do you know what? I did a video on built-in speed limiters, I think about a year ago, and that is on the channel if you want to look it up. You're quite right. They supposedly stop lunatics from putting the rest of us in danger of outrageous speeds, but also curtail our freedom and badges are worth it. I don't know. Whoops, shouldn't have done that. Just accidentally sort of pushed my microphone lead down. It's okay. Hopefully you can still hear me. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm a fan of these built-in speed limiters myself. I don't know if they are going to be your best idea, but they are supposedly coming in next year. A bit sort of bit kind of controversial, I think. Mark from Motoring says he'd like a Land Rover 101 forward control. Oh, 101 forward control. Yes, I know what forward control is. Overland camper, interesting. Richard Howlett says hydrogen's the way to go. Yeah, I like to drive a hydrogen car. They tend to be actually quite difficult to get hold of though, because there's only something like 14 filling stations in this country, and they cost like about £50,000 to £70,000. So they're not necessarily the best. At the moment, it's just a shame in that way. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains Television says, I had a Stilo a Bath with a cellar speed and the gearbox packed up. Even the locals Fiat specialist said they were horrid. Thank you, sir. That's useful. Andrew just says, goodbye, thank you to the video. Yes. Yes, goodbye, sir. Simone Hood says, jump over to Twin Cam. He goes live at 8. Yes, we will finish before that. If you want to go to Twin Cam's channel and watch the live stream, no problem. Mark Wheatley says, thank you for all content this year. Looking forward to next year. Thank you. We do have content probably already filmed until the end of the first week in January, so we're going to be okay. Trouble favorite cuisine. We haven't really got time to discuss that, I'm afraid, sir, because we are sort of running out of time now, I'm afraid. Dean Arch says, I'm watching Escape to the Shatter and thinking about Citroens. We haven't had many Citroens on the channel, actually. The BX I drove, I kind of enjoyed, but because it has a forbidden fuel engine, we can't really talk about it. Simone from Hutton Classics says, I like hydrogen. I really want to drive a hydrogen car. Mr. Richardson, previous driving, did drive Toyota Mirai a couple of years ago, and the video completely bombed. I don't know why. It made no sense, but I really want to try one myself. It's just a bit difficult. Mr. Coleman will call me soon. Thank you, sir. Chase one on C's. Actually, the forward control. I don't know about if I'm going to be able to drive these Land Rovers. It could be a little bit too difficult for me, judging on the experience with the P4 and the Midget and the Stanza, where I couldn't get fifth gear in either of them. I drove 2 in a day and couldn't get fifth gear in either of them. Alex Lester says, thank you. Good to see you in action. See you next year with P6 driving. Oh, yes. And of course, Alex has another couple of cars here that she used to drive too. David Scottish Conference TV says, great as always. Wait for a couple of glasses of lady wine of good lady wife. Yes, lady wine is much appreciated by lady wives. Bad Book says, Richard Hewlett, JCB Lord Bamford, just stuff of hydrogen converts internal combustion engines. I really going to stop soon because I can't get my words out. All this wine. Simone says, thank you for the stream. That's very good. No problem. John Hodson says, enjoyed the stream. Thank you, sir. Drybook says, hydrogen is the most abundant element of the universe. Makes sense to me. Good night to all. And I think we will end. It will end there. So thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching, whether you're watching this on catch up, whether you have been part of the stream this evening. We've had an enjoyable time. We've gone on from random tangents, and I'm not be able to get my words out properly, which is, not really a surprise. But thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the join button, become a channel member if you'd be interested in doing that. And like this video, leave a comment below. It all very much helps out. And thank you ever so much indeed, everybody, once again.